It's okay. YouTube Studio is doing things. Oh, I think we're up and running. I think. I think. I'm gonna keep thinking. Anyway, yes. This one started. Well, not started. This one was scheduled a little sooner, well, closer to the previous stream than would typically be intended. Just gonna say that off the cuff. Just because the one last month ended up being a little later, just because New Year's, Christmas work, so it just waited until like the second week of the month rather than this one, which is just barely still in the first week of the month. I think that's about a difference, about 3 weeks, give or take a day or two. Hello, yes, we are live. We have viewers. So let's get the bunny off screen and actually get a video. This is going to be our plan for tonight. Is just basically getting this guy done as much as possible within the time frame I can be bothered to do. Uh, as you can see, already done some bits on him. That is mainly just because uh, I've basically done it to the same amount that I did the Centurions on stream, like the entire squad on stream. Uh, just based yellow with that first layer of some areas blacked out. Honk. Alright, let me just arrange these on my screen. Yeah, that does it fairly well to show everything. See the chat and I can see OBS. Mans. Yes. Let me just check. Audio is yes, my mic is coming through. I just had to mess with some settings. So yeah, got this guy already to the same level I had done the Centurion guys last stream. Just because I don't think we want every stream to be watching me just paint something yellow and then that be done. Speaking of the Centurions, they got done pretty not long after last stream. So I've got them here. If I just move the actual sergeant out of the way, these guys came out pretty alright considering. A little bit of extra shading, a little highlighting. It was a bit interesting doing the checkers on these shoulder pads just because they're just sort of like a chunk of a cylinder rather than a hemisphere. So that was one. There's the other one. So striding forward. Did red on the missiles just to make them pop, and a little thing I've noticed where if I can't see the weapon whilst I'm playing the game, I'll forget the weapon's there. Happens with the bolt cannons on the Sagittars all the time. And then we've got the Sergeant. Anyone who remembered he actually had a different thing on his back, I dropped him, it broke off, and I've replaced it since with the Aquila that also came with the same kit, so it's pretty standard. Yeah, they came up pretty good. Pretty happy with those. And as for the models for this month, you might already see I've already done most of the squad down here. This is literally me just getting bored on my lunch breaks at work. There we go. And just deciding, screw it, I'll get the rest of the squad done, and then I'll paint the sergeant on stream. So this is our guy with the plasma pistol. I mean, they're all pretty much the same heavy bolt pistol, chainsword, but slightly different poses. Slightly, most of this squad are pointing the pistol somewhere. So by the time the sergeant's done, he's going to be around this level. Whether or not I get him to this level on stream is going to be a different matter because these four are across about 2 weeks worth of lunch breaks, so about 8 hours. So yeah, they're about 2 hours each, start to finish, and this guy's already a little bit in. So hoping to get this guy at a similar level. And then as well, before we start, if I just tinker that across, In terms of the list has in fact changed, but not because of the reasons I thought. In terms of the balance update, the Devastators, these fellas went up by 10 points. Normally, in a vacuum, that would be bad because the list was about 1995 points. But Assault Intercessors, the random battle line unit I have, went down 10 points. So the list remained exactly the same from, after it had been changed for tactical reasons. I won't go through all the changes. I'm considering Lamartis. There's going to be a little bit more shooty stuff, just because, yeah, uh, may change detachments. I'm a little on the fence. I found a detachment I would like. Oh, hello. I'm just gonna say cool persona because I don't know if you still want name or username. Evening. But yeah, detachment may change. They did buff Sons of Sanguinius, kinda. Like, oh, it's +2 on the charge now instead of +1 on the charge, which I mean has some cases where it's actually quite nice. Like I was discussing with Slider last night, was sort of like, oh, for things like Power Fist and Thunder Hammers, that's strength 10 on the charge, just naturally, which isn't bad considering. It's just whether or not that alone is enough for me to want to stick with the detachment. I'm going to play a game of each, I think, with the list I've currently built, just to see how it feels. Like the buff Sons of Sanguinius, this other one, I'm keeping it a secret just because I want it to be a little like, ooh, because I'm not sure if it's dumb yet or if it's actually really smart. I want to figure that out for myself. But there's a plan. There is a plan there, and the plan sounds quite fun as well. It's not quite as jump in your face and smacky smacky, but at least it's not red ultramarines because everyone's first advice is, oh, just take Gladius. It's like, no. I know it's good, but everyone takes Gladius. I want something that feels right. +2 strength enables some pretty strong breakpoints. And same, I don't mind. Okay, yeah. See my name on this account. I'm not. Yeah, it's not your VTuber one. Okay, I'll just use people's names. Fuck it. This is just personal accounts. But yeah, the +2 on the charge does have some good points. Where like say these guys would be say killing guardsmen on 2s, and Thunderhammers are wounding dreadnoughts on 4s, or with certain other buffs available, make that a bit more. I mean, I was saying last night, I was comparing aggressors with the biologists to give them lethal hits to terminators with a chaplain, which is +1 to wound. So like I'll have to rerun the maths in my brain where it's like, oh, 6 is to hit automatically wound, and then you've got your AP and damage, or you're still rolling to hit, but you could be wounding things on freeze, like big things on freeze and 2s with the same weapon. But then with the aggressors, their fists are twin linked, so the ones that don't get your 6s, you get re-rolls on. It's funky maths. Don't say my name ever. Oh, too bad. Half of your name is your name. Yeah. Anyway, as for rambling about the logistics, the upkeep, the number crunching, the spreadsheets, whatever, man's. First off, I'm just going to take this off. Just because the first thing I usually do after just yellow and this initial slap of Ayandin is we just start getting the shading, just more shading, which is why these guys have got much deeper shadows in comparison, because there is a bit of dark oath in the recesses and the corners and the deep bits. So let us start with that. This brush is a little stuck. I see I don't even have a name. Well, I'll explain. Not much, actually. I can't think of a clever joke in response to that. Where's a good angle? So as for the shading, I'll just slap it over the entire backside of the model. Let's not even be graceful about it. This is all going to be in shadow. It doesn't even receive much in the way of highlights. The worst part is that Oath of Moment makes the maths confusing, so I don't do it. Yeah, I would say in terms of doing any sort of like maths, I would just ignore Oath of Moment just because, like, you could do a version of if you're doing the Oath of Moment target and if you're not, you could do that. But whether or not the thing you're wanting a unit to hit and the thing you're wanting to oath are the same thing are entirely situational to me. Where it's just like, yeah, it makes sense. Stack as many buffs as possible on a thing, but especially in the case of a melee unit, the thing you're trying to punch and something you need to also shoot off the board could be very different things. Like, I could need the aggressors to just, or Terminators or whatever it is with calculating gear to just tie up, like, I don't know, something. Just keep it in place. Force it to fall back, limit its shooting, get some damage in because why not? That's what half of combat is sometimes, is just keeping something busy. Meanwhile, the thing that I want gone, I could just, blam off the board or hit with something else. Oath is, I think, yeah, I prefer thinking of Oath like that. Because you're not always going to be able to hit the oath target with everything in your army. At least that's what I think. I don't know. Maybe that's just poor planning on my part. Yeah. Bottom of the legs just end up mostly in darkness. Inside of the thighs. Oop, that was a bit much, but we're going to be cleaning this up after anyway. This way. There's not really a good way with the way of focus the camera, but let's just get the armpits, bottom half of the torso as well. Really, the way that I paint these is most of the lightest points are going to be the head and the shoulders, just to make them really pop. Uh, Bottom half of this shoulder pad is going to be very much in shadow, from what I can tell. So if I just view it like that, yeah, because I want to get that armpit, and I might as well just blah 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 blah. And the bottom half of the tilt shield, bit behind the tilt shield. But yeah, hoping the current list I've got I can at least do some fun. Last game I played with I think I remember I was playing it against Jason, and I did say at the time I was running on about 5 hours of sleep. So in retrospect, I look back on that game and it's like that wasn't really a proper test because like I just made so many dumb mistakes. I can't really attribute a lot of things to the list. Like I forgot there was a whole chunk of the board that things could be at just because it was behind something for me from an angle I was standing at. So I just completely forgot about it. Then I forgot how certain terrain worked, so I just didn't deploy correctly, etc. So yeah, that wasn't a fair test, but I do also agree. Yeah, Sons of Sanguinius, like it's a thematic one. Like it give me a good combat-oriented detachment any day, but something a bit better, please. Like we say that we joke about the Tau one not doing anything until turn 3. The Sons of Sanguinius doesn't do anything until you complete a charge, and even then, it's for that unit. I'm seeing chat moving, and I'm looking at an arm at the moment. Uh, did you get the new Tekken? Oh yeah, we're seeing a bit about the new Tekken. Yeah. Oh god, I remember back when we actually had the PlayStation set up at the store, and you would be practicing the weird grapple combo on King. I wonder if that's still the same. There we go. That is actually most of that Darko shading. Problem is, with this being a contrast paint, I now have to wait for it to dry, but I already accounted for that. So while that's drying, I'm just going to get the texture paste on the base. Let's not use that. I use you for dry brushing. I want to have a wet dry brush. Also managed to get a bit of the dark oath on the rock he's standing on. Actually, no, it's already set. Well, it can stay. The rock can have a little bit of brown at the bottom of his feet. Maybe it's rust. I don't know. I've got a rust effect over there that I could use. So let's just slap this shit on. Let's not be clean about it. It's literally dirt. Fairly similar to the way he plays, to be honest. I've been watching. Oh, okay, fair. I mean, yeah, it's King. He's a wrestler. He gonna grab you. He is a luchador, right? I'm pretty sure I remember seeing that because I thought for a while as a kid that that leopard head was real. Like that was just his face. Which, like, considering some of the stuff in Tekken, can you blame me? I remember there being a freaking Velociraptor at one point. Speaking of weird grapple combos, one of the ones I didn't learn is kind of guaranteed now in testing. You can do a full grab just by mashing. Yeah, that sounds right. Maybe I need to try King because all I could ever do in a fighting game that isn't Smash Bros. Is button mash. I do not have that kind of dexterity. And yeah, this I like a Growlithe nerf. I've literally based all of my models with it, bar the Sigma ones. The issue is it smells like chocolate sometimes. So yeah, we'll let that set throughout the stream. Oh, I accidentally moved my marker. And MMA. Yeah, okay. I mean that makes sense. Tekken is basically just an MMA tournament because everyone just shows up with their own thing and starts slapping each other. Granted, at the moment, I've just been a bit obsessed with listening to Guilty Gear music, but that stuff gets weird. Also, there's a guy that just turned up with a gun. I think I've heard people have been fearing King Online. At least he isn't Eddie. Well, yeah, Eddie. Even I know about Eddie, but that's because they had that. They used to have that arcade machine in the local bar we would go to, and just like it was him and the guy with the staff. Those were the overpowered ones, if I remember right. Just because one guy had reach and one guy could just spin on the floor and be almost untouchable. But that's PS2 arcade jank for you. Mm. So let myself have a sip. Ah, yeah, fighting games. So often I actually talk about them. I have actually been tempted to pick up what is the current Guilty Gear. Not even just because playing like I want to play a fighting game, just because like animation and music wise, I could I could just stare at that game all day. It's just amazingly well pulled off. Arc Systems basically perfected the whole making 3D look like 2D from just making a Dragon Ball game. I say just from making a Dragon Ball game. They did it the first time with the first Guilty Gear that did it, and then they worked on it harder for the Dragon Ball game, and now it's just like, okay, we figured this shit out. But it would help if I didn't drop him. I know what I've done wrong. Yeah, I'm just going to pop his backpack on, just because I want to get some of the shading on that too, actually, before anything gets forgotten. I will have to trim down anything that gets on the peg. I had to do that with the other guys on the list as per. Yeah, Ryan, your list is longer than both of your arms and the rest of your body length. You're gonna get to streaming some things in 2025 that most people got through in 2024. Just yeah, I've got Guilty Gear was good. Yeah, just low parry Eddie now. Friend of ours is an Eddie main. He's announced as the first DLC. They've already announced the DLC characters. They do not wait on that, do they? I remember back when I think it was Street Fighter 4 did DLC characters, and there was controversy because it's like, oh, it's in the game. All the DLC is check a little box that lets you actually play the character. And now, I mean, that's less of an issue now, but like, I don't know, having the DLC already announced is a bit like, okay, calm down, you're not Atlas. Let's release Soul Hackers 2 with a bunch of day one DLC. or like EXP boosts and costumes and shit like that. It's like, calm down. I'm not gonna. Well, I wouldn't get that sort of DLC anyway, let alone for a game that I don't know I actually enjoy yet. Granted, that was if I bought Soul Hackers, and that would also involve people enjoying Soul Hackers too. 'Cause from what I heard, that game was very generic. It kind of had to, since the game launched, missing about a third of the characters from 7. Wow, that's impressive. Like, I'd get it if, like, I don't know. This isn't a rag on fighting games, but it's all like you'd think where it'd be a case of like they're gonna mostly be the same in terms of how they play. Like they've got an identity, they've got inputs that most people are going to remember. You just like just slap that in. Granted, that does sound FIFA levels of lazy, but it's $60 for the base game. I'm just happy King was in the base game. Yeah, to be fair, King is kind of a classic for Tekken. Like I don't know a lot about Tekken, other than like there's occasionally velociraptors and kangaroos, and there's usually a bear and a panda. But like, I think Tekken, and I do think King before I even think the I can't even remember names. Mishima's the half devil guy and the granddad. I actually literally forgot the family name. Mishima might just be something from Yakuza now that I say it out loud. But yeah, I think those characters, things like that, before I even think of the like actual main characters of the series, is because that feels like the actual series identity to me. Yeah, I like Panda and Kuma. I like there's just I don't know. There's like a technically there's a serious story, but there's also just like there's a bear, there's a crush on a panda. Does it make sense? No, but he's going to try and give her a trout as a asking out gift. Look, there's just sometimes you can just sit in the corner and have a little bit of fun. That is something I will absolutely give a lot of Japanese media over Western media, where it's just like there's a lot more earnestness in sort of like, yeah, Japan does have like the reputation of doing weird stuff, but that reputation is there because they did weird stuff because they liked the idea, so they just did it. Like I've been trying to get back into some Kamen Rider Tokusatsu stuff, and that is in the exact same boat of like it's a kids show, but it gets fucking weird. And it's like it's not done with like a slight, oh, isn't this weird? It's like no, they just do it in earnest. It's like that's what makes it fun to watch because there's no sarcasm to it. It's just like, yeah, here's a kung fu bug man for the kids to watch. Go on, he's gonna go punch a Nazi now. I know some solo combos for Kuma and Panda. Kuma's new rage art has a rocket propelled salmon. That just makes you think of the dog from Final Fantasy VIII. For Tekken, I think Hyperdimension Neptunia character. Is that like the pink haired anime girl that's actually a cyborg and her head like constantly falls off? That's another Tekken character I think of a lot, but that I mean she's got chainsaw arms, can you blame me? Yeah, there's just a bunch of weird Tekken characters, and that's like half the fun. Not knock off Devilman and Muscly Granddad. So is it Mishima? I cannot remember the family name. I just know at some point they both get thrown into volcanoes on two separate occasions. Right. Yeah, that is the Dark Oath laid down. So might put a little bit more on the face grill actually, and the basic materials laid down. And I don't know, someone time lapse that, just sort of like setting and half cracking throughout the stream. Chainsaw Girls, Elisa. Right. Okay. Just Open up a wiki. And that's something that like just seems to happen with fighting games a lot. Like mentioning Guilty Gear and Tekken. So like, yeah, I tried to look up the story for Guilty Gear at some point, and it's like, what the fuck? Alternate dimensions and genetic experiments, and I know Bridget's there. It's like all the fighters are mutants, interdimensional beings. Some guy who looked behind the curtains and decided, okay, cool. And then the president. I'm pretty sure that's one of the characters in the current game. He's just a big old guy in a with like a little bowler tie, like those little Texan cowboy ones, and like the two little strands rather than like a full necktie. The president is just there. It sounds like JoJo, but like the president's only there for a little bit for like one of the series. Right. Where next on is? I think yeah, I've laid down all the Dark Oath now. Actually, most of it has dried, but some of the deeper parts are still going. Jump pack I can probably pop off again if I just. There we go. That won't interfere with. As long as there we go. Yeah, just didn't have to touch any of the wet parts. Jin's name Heihachi Mishima and Kazuma. Oh, did he like change his name, or is it like you're my grandson slash son, but I don't accept you in the family, or whatever? Some sort of like thing. Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure of the name because there's two of them. Okay, I remembered one of them. I remembered Granddad's. I know Heihachi is the old man. Right, let's get some of the Silver Lake down. Yeah, fighting games. Now that I think on it, yeah, it's not even like just the Japanese fighting games that have the weird stories. Because like Guilty Gear, Tekken, Street Fighter feels slightly more grounded. That's just like one guy trying to take over the world a lot, from what I understand. I don't know. I watched the old movie. That was actually quite a fun watch. That one's generally more grounded in terms of half of the craziness going on. Smash Brothers is just like we need to justify all these characters here, and then they don't. Uh, I did the story for Tekken 8. Nothing makes sense in the slightest, and I know the story. Jin chooses to take his mum's name, I think. Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You hate your dad, you go your mum's maiden name. Mortal Kombat, that's another series that's had like a wacky story to the point where they pulled a DC and just rebooted the story, but only kind of. Like, it's like some of the DC reboots and Final Fantasy 14, where like the fact that the story got rebooted is part of the story, so it's not really a full reboot. So like you still kind of would help to know the old story that they just tried to get rid of, but then it's also like they're trying to I don't know, just fucking commit. Uh, yeah, that's a short of end of the overall story. There's an anime for it on Netflix now. That sounds about right. I watched some of the story for Tekken 8. It was so confusing. Yeah, but like I say, that they just at one point just go, "Alright, fuck it. We're not going to justify or make this any like make sense. We'll just fucking do whatever we want." And I can kind of have a respect for that. So, well, why don't we reboot to make it less confusing? Like, no, just keep it going. Keep MMA soap opera going because it's basically what it is. Not as an insult, but like the description of it. It's just one really long story that keeps going, and there's occasionally some kung fu, the capoeira, the boxing kangaroo. To like, I have that phrase stuck in my brain from like a freaking old Kid Icarus video. Say boxing kangaroo or something like that. I've not watched him in ages, actually. I think he's still going, isn't he? Yeah, I still occasionally see him get retweeted on my feed. Usually just gonna glance at the chat just to make sure stuff isn't coming in. Hopefully, I've changed my stream output. I don't know why I was trying to stream at 60 FPS, but I'm going at 30 now, and I think it's going to make very little difference. Like, you don't need those extra frames of me painting this little jet turbine silver. It's not even on screen. There you go. So hopefully that helps with any latency because I'm trying to push less information into the server. And the server is therefore trying to push less information to you. So that is less of a bottleneck. MMA anime soap opera is kind of a perfect description of what I know of the Tekken story. Yeah, yeah. A lot of family drama, a lot of fighting, probably a good amount of screaming. I just got some silver on his shin. There we go. I had a big brush to soak that up. There we go. No, it's just a wet shin. And this is why we water down the paints. Sure, having it less thick also means better finishes, but also, if you get some in the wrong place, it's a lot easier to just get rid of it. It's very rarely spoken of thing because actually it would involve people on the internet admitting to making a mistake. Yeah. Paint that undersuit silver. I could leave it black, but I think I prefer the silver. It's a little extra texture. A little on that butt. Get it off. Get that silver off his butt. So butt that off. And then whilst I'm here, get the grenade. Yeah. There's not really not a whole huge amount going. I say that. I'm pretty sure there's rumors flying around that Xboxes are going out the window. Apparently, something's being announced by Microsoft soon, and I'd say there's leaks in big, heavy quotation marks, that they're just cancelling the Xbox line. Not 100% sure on that, but also there was that leak that came out a while ago where Microsoft were like, we'll just buy Nintendo, they're small. And that just had people laughing. It's like, yeah, like Warner Bros. Buying Disney. I don't know, that might happen at some point. The way shit's going. I mean, the story of Tekken 5 was basically that Heihachi's dad came back to life to cause more drama. To just look like Heihachi, but more too. And Heihachi's flying around with freaking devil wings half the time. Like, I'm pretty sure someone just got really into Devilman back when it was just a manga. Never did get around to watching the Netflix series, but that would also, again, involve me getting Netflix. Whenever there's anything I want to watch, it's the one thing I want to watch at the time. So I was like, why would I get a subscription? And pirating stuff, I still have to go and watch it. And that's fucking effort. Watching stuff is just effort. Watching stuff from Netflix is probably even more effort just because it's like, well, I enjoy that series. Let's see if it actually continues. So it's good to just sit back and wait to see if it gets cancelled before watching something it feels half the time. Just gonna have to go at a funny angle just to get. There we go. Get the rest of the muzzle for the plasma pistol. There we go. And those grenades. These guys just kind of came laden with all the little bits. I usually would leave pouches and grenades off, but these guys had like the leather straps on. God damn, I got silver on him again. The leather straps on their thighs, so it kind of felt weird to just have those without, the thing that those straps are keeping attached to the rest of the model. So I kind of just had to go and attach all the little accoutrement. Netflix has been bullied into continuing series, including Warrior Nun. I think I remember hearing about that. At least the Warrior Nun one. I don't know about other series. But like, yeah, I just remember the threshold they put for like continuing a series was just way too high. Well, it sounded way too high when they needed like was it 10,000 or 100,000 viewers within like the first weekend or something for them to guarantee a new season of something. And then the whole free season curse seems to have something to do with actors' contracts, where like, oh, if you're having them come back over and over again, you got to pay them more because they're more valuable to you then. So they just end series at that threshold, so you don't have to pay them more or something like that. Some bullshit. Then again, there's also Warner Brothers just making shit and just then not releasing it because that's more profitable at the moment. It's like it gets more money having a tax write-off than actually releasing a film for them right now, which is insane. Shows something's broken. Right, just gonna do this sword hilt silver as well. Done all the chainsword hilt silver, and then this sword blade is gonna be a bit bluer. Disaster lesbian nuns. I can see why that show is popular. Like the porn jokes are easy, but also people do just enjoy that sort of stuff. Like for I don't know if the word would be innocent, but you know what I mean. Less horny reasons. Right. More of the undersuit. He's got a little bit of his belly showing. So it is now silver. There we go. Hey, I think that's all the silver on the main body. Barring some bits it seemed to have tried to spill out. Just buff them off. Backpack I will leave until I know all that is dry, because I'll see some wet bits. So where to next? Pouches. Yeah, let's get the pouches on. Doom Ball Brown, where is it? There it is. Nice dark reddish brown. It's going to get highlighted up, and the stream obviously is a bit more yellow. But, oh well. I'm also still debating on what to paint next after this. I might start the Land Raider, because, hold on a second. Where is it? There it is. I looked at the Land Raider and thought, God damn, basing that thing yellow is going to be a pain in the ass. So I got some of this shit. Sunset Yellow from Color Forge, which is apparently pretty good match for the Avalon Sunset I already use on everything. So, over the next month, I'm hoping it goddamn stops raining. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to use a case to transport a Land Raider to their shed. Give it a blast of this. It's already primed white, and this is a primer, but I'm hoping I can just give like a very thin layer of this to get the colour down. And then I can get a start on the Land Raider. From there, the Land Raid is probably going to slowly be worked on in the background. I'm not going to get that done in a month. I can tell you that right now. It's a massive shoebox with some guns on it. So have the Land Raider be worked on in the background, and then at that point it can just be a continuous stream of paint this character, paint that character. I've got a chaplain and a captain, and I've made a Primaris version of a jump pack chaplain and a jump pack sanguinary priest. Jump packs are in the mail. I had to order those on eBay just because I wanted the same kind that these guys are flying with rather than the old style ones. So slap them on the back, paint those. The Phobos Lieutenant that I'm going to try. Uh, what else? Chaplain. Judicia is already done. Decided to keep a Judicia over. Um, I think that's it for characters. Yeah. And hopefully by the time those characters are done, Land Raider will be in a showable state. You're gonna paint your darkest dungeon models at some point, not for the stream, of course. At some point. I've literally got the box. I don't know if you could hear that. I've literally got the box down under this desk. I can see it down by my foot. And I've been tempted to get a start of those at some point. Uh, when? I don't know. Because there's a lot of models in that box, and I would probably just get the player characters done. We also need to play it at some point. Both me and you have a copy, and we've had those copies for over a year, I think, at this point, and neither of us have actually sat down and played it. It's a four-player game, which is awkward because our board game group is 5 people, and most board games are 4 people. But mm, yeah, I want to at some point. I want to try and mimic the game art style, which might make things easier because that shading is literally just solid black. Right. Yeah, let's get a second layer down on the silver quickly before I start on any of the pouches. But yeah, I do want to get them done at some point. Maybe. Me I don't know, maybe just do a random stream in October. Do it as a Halloween thing. Like I've got some already got some time booked off for summer and spring. Well, I've already know when I would get some time booked off for summer and spring. So maybe that could be like I book some time off in autumn and just do that as like a stream during my time off, just because I'd have more time, and then just work on it in the extra time off I have. I don't know. Depends. Honestly, it depends on what I get done throughout the rest of the year. Basically, I've got this project, uh, and my Necrons I kind of want to get done as much as possible as well. Necrons and Votan are very dangerously close to being fully painted armies for me, at least out of the collection that I've got. Necrons, it's a bit more. Votan, it's mostly the second Sagittor and the Hecaton. Still want to play the Dark Souls board game. Yeah, oh, set it up at some point. Hold on, I'm reading the stream, the chat backwards. Yeah, yeah, we'll have to play it at some point. And the Dark Souls board game, yeah, it is pretty good. It took us a while to figure out certain things, but unlike the Dark Souls RPG from the same people, at least the pages were in the right order. I have to see if we can't break it out at some point for you guys to play outside of the board game group. I still need to bring down Escape from the Dark Castle to the store at some point because I think that could be a fun thing to play with folks at the store. And I've got the Night Cage on the way as well because that looks fun. I don't know. I tend to lean towards the spooky board games apparently, but yeah, I like spooky board games. I say spooky rather than scary. Like they don't actually scare you. There's tension for sure, but I don't know. I've never gone like ah. I even tried to read it dramatically when I was playing that last. And I was just the guy playing the cards rather than an actual party member. Oh, paint for Dark Souls board game stuff. I mean, yeah, that was something I'd offered to do for the guys as well for their copies. Paint and play, whatever. Uh, Honestly, that's gonna mostly be silver, just silver spray paint. It'd honestly contrast pretty well because there's a lot of chainmail on those models, and then the rest are like hollows, so they're kind of zombie-ish. So not super difficult. It'd actually be good practice for armor. Uh, yeah, that's actually it for the packs. Just these little. He's got his pistol holster. He's got these random packs. I'm gonna let that dry. That's definitely gonna need a second coat. So I just noticed a bit on the grenades that I missed way back here. Where they actually join the legs. There we go. Those are gonna need washes at some point as well. While we're waiting, then we'll layer on the gold. That's the problem with painting a model this far in. I also just noticed I was way far from the screen for a good while there. So half of it needs some sort of wash at some point. Right. And Aquila. The only gold bit on these guys. It's also something that makes me nervous with streaming. I can just hear my laptop fan. I set it to high performance mode just to make sure I can keep it under a decent temperature just for my own safety. Well, not safety, just to be safe. And boy howdy, it is going. We'll keep it at 60. That's at about 5,000. Let's ramp it up. That's not coming through on the mic, hopefully. Doesn't seem to be. Man, I can see that jump up there, though, on the GPU. Eh, oh well. Nah, I'm not seeing the bars move when I'm quiet. Okay. So yeah, that's still drying. Gold is now on. Thankfully, the gold layer's on pretty quick. I think. Oh no, there's the skull on his helmet. Granted, there's going to be a stripe of black there because this is a sergeant, but let's just dab, 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 dab. Can't hear the laptop. Fantastic, because I can. It sounds like I've got a small turbine going on in the background. This thing's got 4 fans because I got fed up with my old laptop overheating. But the stream is a bit quiet. Yeah, I can't seem to do anything about that. Like this is in terms of like microphone OBS settings and stream settings. This is about as loud as it goes for me, and I can see the bar. It occasionally tips it yellow on OBS's soundbar, so it could just be OBS, just generally being a lower sound volume. But yeah, I don't know what else is going on there. Right, that's still drying. That's still drying. I want to get everything based and then washed, and then I can tidy up the yellows. Well, I mean, some of these do take a while. I want to tidy up the yellows. I want to do the whites. Do I just slap on the whites now? Yeah. I'm going to say whites. I actually mean a very light grey. Is Ulf one. Because white paint is chalky. So, advice for painting white: don't use white. It's been my plan. I even use that shit for the beast snaggers for like the bony bits that I like to do. So just got to do the field of the shoulder pad. This will probably need a couple coats as well, but if this needs a second coat, I can wait for this first one to dry hopefully and get somewhere else. Also going to be putting a little bit of this on the tilt shield. I think I'll just do half and half on the tilt shield and then do checkers on the white half of the tilt shield. So thankfully, send us your OBS settings at some point. Can maybe do a compare. The sound stuff's just default. I've not tinkered with it. I've just sort of like just left it as is. Don't know if that would tell you anything. Just because like I am not an audio guy. I'm barely a video guy. So like when it comes to settings, like I'll leave that alone. That's going to be like that for a reason. Though, yeah, the only things I ever tend to mess with for video are resolution and frame rate. Even the interlacing, I'm like, I don't know. As long as it's not interpolating, we're good. There we go. Bit of an awkward angle. That's probably not showing amazingly well, but just to get that outer edge of our tilt shield. And then inside this little curvy bit. There we go. That's mostly dry. It's still a little shiny, but it'll stay still for when I do this. Okay. Some paints just tend to dry faster as well, I've noticed. Also, I move my mic and I can hear some popping. So you go over there, near my mouth but out of my airways. Audio issues make me legitimately angry. It gets around. I mean, I can understand that. There's like, there's. It's called something phobia, but it's not actually like a fear. It's like where certain sounds can just be really irritating. Like they just make you angry. Like it's usually like eating and things like that, like the sound of chewing, that can just make some people just fly off the handle. Which, I mean, to be fair, it could be really gross hearing certain things like that. Like just wet body sounds are just like, yeah, there we go. It's all light based. Like it's got a name. I forget what it's called. Right. The brown's mostly dry. I'm just going to use that neat rather than off the palette because it's actually quite a thin paint. It's just a very nice colour. Doom Bull. Yeah, just a quick slap on of a second coat and that blocks out very nicely. There we go. Yeah. So a lot of stuff there is basically ready to wash. Let's put you back in focus. Right. Looking at that on screen. Yeah. You can tell just the shine of the gold compared to the rest of the body. Stuff on here needs washing. So let's get on that after I get a sippy. Misophonia, not phobia. Phonia makes more sense, yes. Uh, Jump pack still got some bits dry on that. That little bit where this little power cell, this little corner, just stayed really wet for some reason. Oh, well, I did a Google. Ah, yeah, that would help. When in doubt, look it up. I forgot the top of the holster. There we go. So we'll do the brown last, considering that takes its time to dry. For the gold, I like to shade with some Drucci Violet. It's got a little purple. Figured I'd do that first just because it's the smallest area. I could do it in like a couple brush strokes. And that's how I get my gold looking different from the yellow armor. There we go. Super quick. I'll probably take like 10 minutes to dry while I do everything else. Speaking of everything else, let's do the white, Apothecary White. That's what I use. I do have the weird grey shade that came out last year, but I've been using this same part of Apothecary White since the contrast line came out. So we're gonna carry on using it. How are we an hour in already? Jesus. Just looking at my timer on. I'm still dropping about Gucci Violet. I mean Drucci. I think that's a dark elf term, so Gucci isn't too far off. There we go. Just this nice, cool grey colour that I like to use for my whites. It's one of those weird contrast ones that are kind of opaque as well, like milky, as opposed to being like a candy paint. But it just shades white really nicely. Well, without like introducing way too much tone. Because I've seen people try and do white by shading it with black before, and it's like, no, that just looks like a mess. And again, back when I first started these guys, my attempt at shading the white was a really bright blue. It looked okay, but damn, was it messy with how I'd used to paint back then. But that was like 2016, 2015. So, oh well, mistakes were made. Mistakes were learned from. I just realized I need to do that knee pad as well because everyone else's knees are white. Well, their left, our right. So let me just get that done while other stuff is drying too. Thankfully, it's just a circle and a arch. Let me just go at a funny angle just so I can make sure I get all the way in there. Yeah. There we go. Now everyone's going to have matching knees. I don't know why I do this knee pad white. It sort of emulates company markings a little bit, but it doesn't actually match any official company markings if I look through the codex. I don't know. It just breaks up the sea of yellow a little bit. Yeah. See the difference between just the base Ulfwan and the Ulfwan shaded between the knee and the tilt shield. And the tilt shield's in more light at the moment. Well, while that knee dries, let's break the null oil for the silvers. That's Agrax. I'll need that last. Trying not to burp into the microphone. Where did I put the null oil? This always happens. Is that it? The silicon and grey? No, that's what some people use. That's a wash. That's the Agrax again. It can go there, so I can remember that I've looked at it. Whilst I try and find the one paint that I actually need. Is that it? Looks good. Needs no other reason. Yeah, true. There we go. Found it. That's why, yeah. I don't know. When it comes to Space Marines, a load of people do try and keep to the company markings and the like squad markings and things like that, and I know how to recognize those for the most part. And the colors used for each specific company, I couldn't tell you. Like squad markings, like tactical and assault, and like squad markings, I could tell you. But those are literally like, here's a symbol, here's a number, rather than third company green. Why? It is. Like, okay, great. Like anyone actually ever to match the company markings because, like, Uriel Ventress, let's say, him. You're disconnected, reconnecting. Oh, OBS dropped for a second there and gave me a big loud bing. Okay, yeah, frantic about company markings. Like Uriel Ventress, that's a Space Marine character that people like to use in their armies because he's actually pretty decent. I think he's third company. I only know this because he started out as a character in the novels, and they make a point of saying he's the third company. I could probably Google him right now for his model and find only a small number of people actually having done the actual company shoulder trim instead of, the gold that everyone associates with Ultramarines, instead of, the gold that everyone associates with Ultramarines, because it honestly just looks better. And this is why we don't bother with company markings, people. You don't want grassy green shoulder pad trim on your blue Space Marines. It just look. It's like, no, thank you. Alright, silver went on pretty quickly. Well, the null. The sword, I'm going to paint the blade off with a slightly different blue, but let's just spread the null oil that's settled to the bottom of the blade a little bit, just so it doesn't cool. So that's drying. The Doom Ball is still a tiny bit of drying left, so and the knee pad, I can actually see a patch where it's not a complete layer. So let's just fix that. I'll just do an overall overcoat. Screw it. I do it thin enough. It's easier. There we go. That's looking like a solid block of white. There we go. Right. I'll leave shading the skull on his head because I need to do a big black stripe on that helmet. That is a squad marking I do keep to just because it helps mark out sergeants. Used to be relevant and may become relevant again in the future. It's not really relevant right now in 10, outside of the stuff he's holding, which he's holding. Right. Yeah, Doom Bolt still drying in a few places. Tell you what, let's just load up some of the yellow now and get some of the tidying up of the shading done. Just grab some Avaland, plop it on the palette. Same stuff as always. And that's just going to naturally thin on the palette a little bit too. So with this, I usually tend to like to start on the little mohawk on the Space Marine helmet. Just get that front edge brighter. If it showed up, if it was in focus, yeah. And then just highlight just to get the volumes of whatever part I'm painting showing a bit better. Because one of the things when it comes painting Space Marines to look a little extra fancy, if you can figure out how to highlight a sphere and a ball, a sphere even in a cylinder, that's 90% of a Space Marine model. Like, look at this guy. Cylinder, cylinder, ball, ball, cylinder, 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 ball, ball, ball. They're very simple shape-wise. So, figuring out how to highlight them is really easy. The only bit that ever is tricky is things like the face grill, because the vents are really tiny and you tend to get some in there too, just like that. But we can fix that later with a thin brush and some of the dark oak. And then I also like to highlight the collar, even if it doesn't make sense in the direction he's looking, just to help highlight his head. So we're going to have him highlighted as if the light is straight on from where he's looking. So I can actually use the camera as reference for that. Shoulder pad. That field is mostly correct. There's a little darkness that's crept up a little higher than I thought that it should, but we've got a tidy up step for that as well. It looks really bright now because it's shiny and wet, but it'll dull a little bit as it dries. Let's get a little bit of the top edge and the outer edge. I've also just been thinking of like what else I want to get done this year, because I've half done my terrain set, but I also want to add to my terrain collection. Just that kill team set that came out recently had good terrain that matched my stuff. I want to finally finish. Well, I want to finally start even sculpting the snail knights for my turnip force, and then actually getting a game of turnip in. That's because that's something a bit different, something a bit down and dirty and crunchy, a little bit morose. Let's get toesy woesies. Like I say, Votan. I just need to paint a couple of vehicles, and that is 1,000 points fully painted accidentally. Necrons got to strip and repaint some of the destroyers I've gotten recently. Trade to get a magic deck to Jason. And then I'll have a full destroyer themed list fully painted pretty easily that Necrons just paint up super fast. I feel like I've abandoned my orcs a little bit. I want to give them a little love. It's knights, yeah. Yeah, that's looking good so far. Yeah, I don't think I actually painted many, if any, orcs last year. I did what was the name of the Goth Rocker? I did the Goth Rocker, and I think that was it in terms of orcs I painted last year, which feels really bad because orcs are fun. They take forever just because of the amount of colours on them, but they're fun. I also need to play them in temp a bit more. I'd mainly be focusing on Votan and these Marines in terms of what I actually play. But in terms of the orc army, I do need a truck still. I need to get that truck, and that's my 1,000 points of orcs. And that's I plan on modifying a Sagittar for that. Anything else? I still have that wizard bust. I actually have it assembled now finally, but I still need to attach it to its plinth and paint that. That's hiding over there. I'd be able to pick it up if I wasn't sort of in the zone with this. There we go. Just highlight that edge. Because this is the inside of the leg. I don't want... That was all off screen. You didn't miss a huge amount in all fairness. Yeah. And then I think I've offered to help both Linkel and Ryan with their stuff. So that'll be something to do. Something different, to be fair. Whether or not, when and whenever they'll call me up on that favour is a different matter. Right, let's actually do the arm because you guys have been looking at that this entire time and have not touched it. Say this is all just a cylinder, so you can just do a bar of light to highlight it. A little bit of that shoulder trim too. I say, no, like I didn't accidentally touch it and thought, nah, fuck it. This is all going to need a little bit of blending, but thankfully that's nice and easy with these guys. So this system put up. So that's 90% of the way there already with the highlighted. Just mostly this arm. So top of this bit of the trim of the shoulder pad is because that's looking right up north. A little bit of the forearm edge. Let's angle it a bit better so you guys can see. Yeah. Then we've got this thingy. The arm, a little bit there. Yeah. And from here, it's basically a chunky edge highlight. And then the grip of the hand. Head, I could bring this a little further back. I'll want a second layer on some bits anyway, just because this is watered down a fair bit, so it's a little patchy, a little dull. Can use that to my advantage at least a little bit. Just tippity tap tap, tap tap tap. I remember trying to figure out how to do all this years ago, and to do it now, it's like, I don't know how to do it. I don't think about it anymore. I used to dread painting these guys because I thought this step took forever, and then I don't know, you figure out a formula for it, and then boom. That's mainly highlighted. I just need to soften the edges a little bit. But let's get some more of the washes on stuff that was taking a while to dry. You can also see the texture paint drying a little bit around the edges if I do that. See some tiny little cracks forming and where it's a lot less wet. Does it smell of chocolate? Yeah, it smells of chocolate. Not good chocolate, but chocolate. So it's mostly just going to be the brown for the pouches and the holster. This is probably a bit too much, but oh well. I'm probably not going to get this guy done in the normal 2 hour slot, but if I can get it to somewhere where I can say I'm pretty much there, I'll be happy with that. Like if I do, let's focus on the yellow. Let's focus on getting the yellow done. I say that as I'm about to break out another contrast paint for it. And then the belt as well. But that's just going to be a thin application in some patches. So hopefully shouldn't take an amazing amount of time to dry. Yeah, chalky. Yeah. I think I'm starting to get more and more of a delay on the chat. I also completely forgot about the jump pack. That has actually dried. Okay, let's get a bit more done on the jump pack then. Let's just pop it back on his back. Because that's going to need some silver. Just this little power celly bit. Let's bring this a bit more in focus. I do quite like this jump pack design. Like the thrusters being a little smaller but supported by these little grav pads that are up here. And then the thrusters, they're the same size as on the old ones, but with the guy itself being bigger, they look a little less wacky. Although looking wacky would be a bad thing. It's just like, I don't know, it looks slightly more feasible. And then we've got the little, like, ankle jetpacks as well. I had to refresh the stream again because it broke. What percentage are we doing with this guy there? I don't know. It's less get him to this percentage and more just do what I can of it a certain time frame. 2.5 hours. Typically, we're about an hour-ish in. I'm finally dropping fewer frames now, though, so that's good. You return with ice cream. Eh, not a bad plan. Get a little ice cream in. Been a while since I've actually had proper ice cream. I used to love that stuff. And I don't know. It's a little less easily accessible to me at the moment, so I just don't have it as much. And speaking of these little graph shoots, and then there's some metallic bits at the front, so I'll have to pop off the actual jetpack for that too. But hopefully, doing this and then a little bit of touch and go probably later on after the stream, and that'll be these 5 guys done. And then I do have a squad in the mail. Well, half of a squad in the mail still, so that will need building and priming before I even think about painting it on stream. Vehicle. Dev Company. I'm still on the fence of whether or not I replace them with like I use this same kit with some parts to make a squad. So I'll hold off on getting those started, even though they were half started a few years ago. When was the last time you had a flake? Uh, I don't know, because usually when I had ice cream, it wasn't a 99. So I've had the flake as in like the chocolate bar that you could just buy, but my usual first pick is a Twix, so who knows? Anyway, silver lay down on the jump pack. Let's just pop it off again. We could wash that after I've done this step, and I'm sure the silver's dried. Just going to grab the same Iandan yellow I used for that first shade that I did off stream, and I'm just going to feather the edges between where the contrasts are and the yellow we've just laid down. It's not a perfect feather. I actually do kind of like when there's a little bit of patchiness to it. It just looks a bit like textured and not grimy so much as it is just more interesting looking. But that makes for a lot more. Well, it doesn't show amazingly on the camera. It makes for a lot more natural gradients. A couple weeks. Twix does go harder for favorite ice cream flavor. Oh gosh, I used to be raspberry ripple, but I went off of that. I think I am just gonna have to go with a boring answer and say chocolate. But chocolate ice cream can be such a hit and miss. Like there's like that general like cheaper flavor that it is nice, but when you've had it's got that weird sort of like it's not super duper sweet. Mm. It's got that sort of like little bit of a bitterness to it, I think. I don't know. It's difficult describing flavors. Like that stuff can be all right, but when you've had like good chocolate ice cream, it's like, oh, it's the only one you ever really want. There we go. Mine's vanilla. I'm boring. Even vanilla can be quite nice. People still like they still make it for a reason. I always found it weird when vanilla sort of like became the word for boring because like That shit used to be expensive because we used to have to import it from, gosh, where was it from? Definitely the New World, like America, South America, that sort of area. Back when it was all like plantations and things like that. Like vanilla used, like sugar itself, to be fair, vanilla used to be a luxury, like a super luxury. Now all the rich people food goes the opposite way, where they take something no one actually wants to eat and pretend it's fancy, like lobster. Right. That is most of the yellow feathered. It's a little less harsh, but it's still like contrasty enough to have a bit of punch. I'm not sure what my favorite is. The Oreo can be pretty alright. Oreo is like it's similar to that other flavor I was describing, where it's like got that little bit of bittiness, like not quite bitter. Like Oreos used to always taste burnt to me, and then I sort of developed the taste for it. Like, yeah, that I do like. It's kind of unique. Raspberry or blueberry? Eh, raspberry, yeah. Like I say, I used to be a fiend for Raspberry Ripple. Like 90% of that stuff is vanilla. So, right. Stuff's still drying on here. If my tongue doesn't go a funny color, I ain't doing it right. You could say that about a lot of things, Ryan. Say that about a lot of things. If your tongue's not going a funny color, try harder. Just gonna loosely place the jetpack on. Oh, I forgot to do the intake. Duh. Might need that. I'm gonna close that before I knock it over. I like ice cream that comes with a crunch. Yeah, I could get that. Like having a little bit of like texture. Like it always feels weird to chew on like regular ice cream, but when there's bits in it. There's a ice cream I used to have as a kid all the time, and I don't remember the name of it or who made it. It might have been Walls, but it like there's a right. This is a very weird tangent whilst I wait for that silver to dry. There's a bit of a weird stereotype in America where surfers would have an air freshener in like their cars or their VW camper vans, and it was just a foot. Like it was just a foot, just shaped like a foot, plastic, clear plastic. And there used to be an ice lolly that was shaped like one of those. And it had like blue, I think I remember it used to have like some blue swirls in it, but it also had little like jelly fruit shapes in it as well. And I used to love that. I cannot, for the life of me, find any evidence that it ever existed. Maybe I'm misremembering half of it, and when I slap those words into Google, I'm getting the wrong answers because I'm not searching for the right stuff. But I swear it was real. I remember. I remember getting from the corner shop up from where my old like childhood house used to be. I remember specifically being very disappointed when it just ceased existing. Oh, you remember those? Right, sweet. I'm not insane. Yeah, I want to find out what the name was so I can prove to people that, like, this was a thing. I remember the ice cream lolly shaped like a foot. And if I can find them, like, I dare say that no one's like reproducing them, and I'm not fussed about that. It's more just like I just want to know that they were real, like a picture of them. I can vaguely remember the packaging having like a kid surfing on the front with like those cool '90s sunglasses and things like that. Cool quotation. I just forgot to do this bit silver too. There we go. That was not on there at all. Was that little silver bit just above where it connected to his back? I don't think I ever had them. I mean, that's fair. They look. That's probably part of why they stopped selling them. They looked very weird. Like I say, it was shaped like a foot. It's not the most appetizing shape, but I don't know what beckoned me to try them the first ever time I had them, but boy howdy did I have them afterwards a lot. And then like I say, they stopped making them. It's like, oh, it's like, they were one of those foods that as a kid that you just there was your default that you wanted every time. Like, gosh, what was it? It was Sainsbury's used to do own. They probably still do own brand yogurts. It seemed familiar, yeah. And they used to do a banana and orange. Now it sounds really bad, but I used to love them as a kid, and they were like, in a lunchbox, you wanted something like you wanted a snack, your parents wanted you to eat healthy, so you got a yogurt, that situation. So they would always be like my pick, and they made those things for years. It is appetizing to some people. Yeah, yeah. Well, fewer jokes about Quentin Tarantino, the better. It, I used to love those yogurts, and then they made them for years. Like most of my childhood, I had those, and then just gone out of nowhere. I was legitimately upset. I was actually heartbroken as a kid. I was like, "Oh, my yogurt, it's gone." I was like, "Dan, I don't think they make them anymore." What do you mean, don't make any more? I had to come to terms with the fact that like it was a thing someone had to choose to bring into existence, and they had chosen not to. Now it's like that can happen. It's like, yeah, no. I vaguely remember. Oh God, the love heart thing on the chat knocks off a bit of that word. Funny, funny feet. Kind of weird to think about. Funny feet. Oh, it's gonna. I hope it wasn't those. That is an ice cream shaped like a foot, but it wasn't those. Also, wow, oh god damn, those are like horrible. Do not Google that if you don't want pictures of weirdly shaped feet or Crocs shaped like feet. Yeah, they weren't funny feet. They weren't those. Those are pink. They were probably just strawberry. Right. So jump pack has been washed. It is over there. It will need brightening up itself soon. I just knocked it off where it was drying, but whatever. In fact, nah, can't do that yet. No, I just looked at it. Okay, what else to do on this guy? Let's get the black stripe on his helmet. Screw it. I'll need Black Legion. Just like the tip for painting white, don't use black paint for black. Use this shit. It's got better coverage than a lot of other black paints. And I will break out the smaller brush, just because it is going to be a stripe on his head. Just one brush load should be enough to get the lines down at least. Let's do this on camera, please. In the middle of the frame, maybe? Maybe. That is uncomfortable. So just going to start from the back of the head. You're not even going to see that bit. It just feels good to have it actually be continuous. That's what I love about something about contrast paints. They're great for freehanding because they're not as sticky as regular paints as well. So they just flow. Much easier to get a neater line. The inside of the mohawk always fills up. And then just bring that down the forehead and just stop there. I found Fiki Freaked, but also pink and white. I might have misremembered the blue. Hold on. Let me just. God damn, I'm going to get some weird suggestions. See, to neaten up that line. Freaky Feet. Let's add ice cream onto that. That's close as well, but yeah, it's not got the surfer thing. Allow Google to access your location? No, fuck off. Maybe if I add surfer. Hold on, there's a Reddit thread from 5 years ago. Bubblegum flavored, possibly shaped like a foot. Uh, Walls Surfer ice cream. Holy shit! No, redirect notice. Okay, I thought that was a broken thumbnail hyperlink. Why is this a Facebook post? Oh, it's an advert for it. Hold on. I have a message on Facebook. Ryan sent me a photo. Oh, you sent a photo of the funny feet. Alright, hold on. I'm not looking at chat just because I'm looking at this foot advert. Holy shit, I think this is it. Hold on. Can I get this on the stream? Oh, Firefox. Yeah! Oh, sorry for blinding anyone. Also, that is my, should really crop that. Okay, if I do that. There we go. I'm not going to play the audio, but yeah, this was it. Is it really just called Surfer Ice Cream? But I think this is it. Yeah. Let's get a picture. That's not them. There's no pictures, but there's that advert. But that advert was definitely it. Hold on. No, I'm just getting more of the same stuff. Right, okay. I'm not insane though. Don't show feet on stream, Dan. I found this such a weird concept of like who thought of this. Also has chocolate on the big. Oh, that was the freaky feet one. Apparently, when I was little, I wanted to have funny feet because I'm not eating feet. Yeah, I mean, the plot thickens. Yeah, I mean, that is those. Like that advert was definitely those. It don't mind it being stream and stream. That was definitely those. I just can't find a picture of the actual lolly itself though, which aggravating. Ah, oh well. That's something that's been in the back of my mind for like 5 months, by the way. just fucking hell. Also, the amount of frames I dropped just from showing Facebook, Christ. And in that time, this null oil has mostly dried on the backpack. So, I'm going to do something a little extreme now. I need a knife. Just because the amount of paint on this peg on the back has thickened it a little bit. The jump pack doesn't want to go on as well. So I'm just going to try and shave off a little bit, because that's just going to be where I glue it on eventually. It doesn't need paint on it. It's got like a little sheet. Ah, apparently I'm getting my stuff delivered tomorrow going by the text I just got from UPS. Nice. When I'm going to be out of the house. Unless I... Hmm. Right, see how that is just shaving off that little bit. That's already going on better. I just need it to go flush. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's on. Okay. So yeah, let us highlight the yellow on the backpack now then. We solved Dan's ice cream musings, which I still need a picture of one of the damn things, but I know they existed. That's the important part. Alright, backpack on. That's already looking a lot better compared to how it was an hour ago. Parcels scheduled for delivery. That's going to be the eradicators. And the Necron stuff. Does it give an estimate of the time? Just by end of day. Very useful, thank you. Right. Yeah, let's quickly highlight up the backpack as well. It's because this is just basically a couple of cubes and some cylinders, so it highlights up super duper quick. Sometimes you just, to get your answers, you just need to actually remember to ask the question. Or just pretend that you know the answer and wait for someone to correct you. That's also worked for me in the past. Like, look, I don't actually know if this is the answer, but this has worked for me so far. And if me saying that's the answer bothers someone to the point they correct me, then sweet, I have the actual answer. It's like, I've worked at a game store, I've been surrounded by nerds. I know people who like to pretend that they're the smartest in the room. I'll be wrong around them and wait for them to tell me. You never know, the parcel could be a surprise shipment of Surfer lollies. If they are, boy howdy, they better be express. Otherwise, that is going to be a lot of bubblegum flavored goo in a bag. It's like, he's found us out. Send him ice cream. It's like, okay, give me ice cream. Do I have space in the freezer? Probably not. Oh well. Hasn't stopped me before. Sometimes you have to make space. I find it funny that GW does use UPS as their courier. But that will, at least, if that is, it isn't ice cream lollies. That is the GW order. That is going to be rules from a Necron, so I will be comfortable playing them again. I'll have the cards and the codex and the flayed ones, and Oracan. Not that Oracan's going to be in my list, I just think Oracan's funny. And putting Oracan and Trazine in the same army list could also be very funny. It's like, here's fucking, what are the old guys from the Muppets? They're basically those, but as skeletons. Skeleton robot wizards just up in the rafters, cracking quips. There we go, that's basically the jetpack already highlighted up. It doesn't need a lot, just because most of it is behind the Marine. It's going to bring its highlights a little further down, though, just so they do show from the front. And then that'll get the same treatment where I just touch it up with a little bit of the Iandan. Yeah, it's just second layer. Tearing that a little bit, actually. That wasn't ready yet. Reinforce that in the middle. Waldorf and Statler. Yeah, that's basically the two of them, just as alien robot skeleton wizards. I think there's literally a scene in the book that just made me fall in love with the characters where they are in a theater. They're not actually commenting on the play at all. They're just like being rude to each other the entire time. Trazine's like, "Hey, did you know the humans use the same hole for pooping as reproducing?" And Orakan's like, "Why are you telling me this?" It's like, I don't know, I just find the humans fascinating. You're sick. Al. Well, maybe. There we go. I might reread Infinite and Divine at some point. Just a funny read. It also involved putting the time aside to read. Like, I've been able to get through Berserk, but that's a manga. That reads a lot quicker than an actual book. About halfway through the eighth deluxe volume of that at the moment, and yeah, that is hitting some themes, shall we say, that I probably can't say on YouTube. There's not a lot you could probably describe from Berserk on YouTube without getting the big like warning. But damn, is it good? There we go. That's a jump pack basically done as well. Have to dry brush and highlight some stuff, but okay. Where to next? Where to next? Yellow only needs edge highlighting now. Well, that's basically done. We're an hour and a half in. Okay. Silver would need dry brushing. Black would need a bit of highlighting. Brown would need a little bit of highlighting. He is actually 90% of the way in there now. Outside of just like doing the chapter symbol. I'll save doing showing how to do those for another thing. Manga's so fast to read, yeah, and you can flick through a few. If it's a fight scene, you can flick through it because it doesn't take long to like. You're not reading dialogue; you're just sort of looking at the pictures and reading the action. So you can just fly through certain manga if there's a lot of combat, and there's a lot less fighting in Berserk than I thought. But when there is a fight, it's about half the chapter. You read 15 books last month. Jesus. I know you're a fast reader and I know you're still ill, so there's not really much else you can do, but that is still really fast. My mum's a fast reader and she's only just gotten onto the copy of House of Leaves I got her last year. Granted, that is a book you need to be in the right mood for. Though, speaking of books, hold on. These are weird ass books I absolutely adored reading. I did put a post on Twitter when I read them like a couple of months ago, but Vermis. Hold on. There's no good way to show these. These things, they're fascinating reads. Like they're not novels. Like you can see how thin this is. Kind of. They're not novels. They are. I felt like I had this idea and I thought it was a very original idea. And then I looked back through my internet history and was like, oh no, I didn't get this idea. I saw a book that did this, liked it, forgot about it, remembered the concept, thought it was my idea. It very limited amount of time for Amazon Prime free books. Had to make use of it. Yeah, fair. Might as well jam it. But these are. It says official guide. It is a guide for a game that doesn't exist, and it is really fascinating. It's like even the technology that the game is sort of like represented with doesn't really match up with anything. Like graphically, it looks like pixel art, but the rendering isn't actually pixels. It's more like just a staticky grain. And the things that happen in the game do not feel like something you would be able to pull off in a game that was still limited by certain styles of 2D graphics. But this, like, it goes through the different character classes you can pick, items, and then it goes through a step by step of like the story and certain areas and certain creatures that you fight. And like, yeah, it is a vibe. It is like a more macabre Dark Souls in a way in terms of like the setting, but the concept of like telling a story through a fictional game guide was really cool. I hope they make more because they made a expansion for this one. Different story, different setting, sort of more of a desert thing than trudging through a wood. Like you can see the shawl this guy is wearing, and you sort of find yourself. The guy finds himself in like an underground maze of mirrors, and it gets really freaky. But yeah, they are fascinating reads. I'm happy. You can read these easily in a couple of nights. I spent more time poring over the artwork than I did reading it because you can just stare at it. So I'm happy to lend either of those to someone who's interested. Like that second book is an expansion, but it is a wholly separate story. The only thing really linking it is the concept of like a guide for a game that doesn't exist. Don't see things like that very often. Yeah, that's why it was fascinating to me. It took a while to arrive, but I think those things were printed on demand. But yeah, fantastic, really interesting. Hope they do more and expand on the idea because it makes it feel really spooky because it's like it's a spooky vibe already, but it feels like you're reading something that shouldn't exist. And that just sort of like makes it feel a bit more like ooh. It was fantastic. Only took a couple of nights of reading for like an hour for both of them, and I did this during my Christmas shifts of work, so it was quiet. So I'd be like read for half an hour, refresh, check if there's anything to do. When there wasn't, read for another half an hour. Did that over a couple of shifts. Well, for the first 3 hours of a couple of shifts, got them both done. I'd love to read them at some point. Yeah, when you're next around, Dana, because I know you're still recuperating. I'll bring them down and I can chuck them your way. Because if I could read them quick and you can read 15 books in a month, you could probably, if you were bored at the store, read one of them in an afternoon, knowing you. Ah, like I say, you could just pour over the artwork in those because it's such an interesting style. Ah, right. I think that's certainly given some stuff enough time to dry. Base is drying even more, and we're getting the. You'll be in tomorrow. Oh, fantastic! I'll bring them down then. Yeah. See that this is started to dry and started to crackle. This will probably be one. I usually save the bases until last, but I figured I'd just plop on the basing material now, just to like show it do its thing. Right, what do we do next? What do we do next? Edge highlighting is boring and takes forever. I think we get it out of the way. No, we've got dry brushing to do. We can tidy up any messes with the dry brushing with the edge highlighting. So let's start with the chest eagle. Just going to get the same gold that I used for the wash. Just a tiny bit on this brush. Rub most of it off on my matte thing. And just very gently, just do. Have it catch the edges. Brighten that up almost instantly. I love dry brushing metallics. There we go, that's the gold with the initial dry brush, and then the second dry brush can go over the gold and the silver. So get another similar sized brush. Is that it? No. Oh, it's there. In that little stand. So, similar sized brush. It's actually a little bigger, but I'm going to have more surface area this. And then for both the silver and the gold, we'll do another dry brush of Stormhost. A very nice bright silver. And that is really going to make everything pop. I'm going to have to go back into this pot a couple of times, just because so far you can dry brush with a small brush before you need to reload. And let's start with the chest eagle. This is going to be even lighter, just because I want to catch the finest points. That really brightened that up. And then I can be a little less soft and just say, get the handle of the sword hilt. Doesn't yeah, metallics don't show the best on camera, but trust me, it shows. In fact, it might show better on the muzzle of the plasma pistol. Maybe. I don't know. Metallics and cameras don't get along perfectly. It's fine. It's expected. And reload. And we can probably get the rest of everything else. And this is basically just how I do most metallics. Just base wash, dry brush. That's why a lot of my early schemes were very metallic heavy. It's because it made things super easy. And it's what makes Necrons super easy. Even though I do a good chunk of those blue now. Like with the Nihilak scheme. The arms, the legs, the gold heads. Still all silver. Makes those parts paint up real fast. And then we got little ankle bits. And a little bit more on the plasma muzzle. Okay. Now I can edge highlight. That actually went fairly smoothly. I usually get a little bit of silver somewhere I shouldn't. And then, yeah, final bit of the yellow. The sky is actually about 90%. It's going to be 90% by the end of this second hour, I think. Hour 45. Yeah, I could highlight this guy in that time easily. Though I think this brush is going to need a little bit of a wash because it's a little crusty feeling from when I last highlighted with it. So look at the kaleidoscope that is my brush paint. Looks like a loaf of bread that's been left out too long. Thankfully, that is just paint and suds. That is actually pulling out some other colours I didn't know were still in there. I still need to figure out what's in this stuff because it smells like pine. Like it doesn't smell chemically at all, but it can do this. Like you could just leach the pigment out of a brush, and I've actually used this to strip uh, very limited parts of a model before. Like just load up a brush with some of the with some like water that's been words like saturated with that stuff. And if the paint is fresh, because it happened to one of my Votan, I applied the silver a little too heavily and it filled in the markings on the head. So a bit of an old abrasive brush, that stuff, and I was just able to gonna wet my brush a little bit more, scrape off that layer of silver after it had dried. Actually saved a model. Granted, it wouldn't have been difficult to strip the paint off, but it stopped me having to strip the whole model, and I was able to do it in that moment. Right, highlighting. I don't know why. Edge highlighting these marines, I like to start with the toes, just because I don't know. It's a very easy win. Like there you go. There's the feet highlighted. And then a little bits over the ankle. It was a bit more than I wanted. I've got a bit more paint on this brush than I really should, but painting on stream is difficult enough as it is. So that line is just going to be a little thicker there. That's fine. Just do the easy parts like the dot, just for the specular highlight on the orb of the knee pad. None of this is showing up on the camera well. Just in there underneath the actual cup of the knee pad. Like you don't need to edge highlight a whole lot on a guy. Like I say, I just focus most of it up in the head and chest area. Like I'm just catching some of the top edges down here on the lower body just to make sure they're defined. And then I just apply more highlights where I actually want people to be looking, which is his little face. There we go, that's the lower half highlighted already. Do actually a little bit more down there. I'm actually still debating what to play tomorrow. And this stream has been a little bit more of a manic going everywhere one, hasn't it? But I think that's made it a little bit more interesting. I'm still trying to find my vibe, but I think my vibe is just say what comes out of your mouth, talk about what you want to talk about, and focus more on getting the technical stuff correct. Yeah. The torso, I do like to get these vents highlighted just so they show. Then underneath, there we go. Doesn't need to be super tidy, just needs to be enough. And then this gorget, just highlight where I've already applied a bit of yellow. I'll save the head for last, just because the head is a bit tricky. Shall we talk about feet again? I mean, there is a joke because I think it got announced recently that Tim Burton was doing an adaptation of like the 50-foot woman, and like most of the comments on the tweet announcing it were like, "Well, thank goodness Quentin Tarantino didn't get that." a lot of worm's eye views if you get me of that film if he did. Though 50-foot woman, that's still going to be appealing to someone. I've been on the internet long enough. That's one of the probably more vanilla fetishes. It's like giant woman. Okay, I can at least see a line of logic there. Instead of do the head last, and there we go, going through his ears. Just get this arm. So inside of the elbow, we got some techie lines here. Bring those out. Wrist thing. Go this little greave, arm greave thing. Feel about a giant woman with 50 feet. That does make me think that, like, is that where the name of that measurement came from? Because, like, I've checked, my foot is about a foot. So is that, like, where it came from? Is that why it's called that? Then what's an inch? What is a twelfth of a foot? What is that measurement named after? Is there some weird old English, like, origin that the Americans just held on to? Because that's where those old measurements came from. Like the imperial system was all just old English stuff, and then we abandoned it because, like, yeah, counting to 10 is easier than counting to 12, then 8, then something else. I don't know whether inches, feet, yards, is it? Or is that a metric thing? No, it's not a metric thing. Yeah, it is yards. I don't know. Miles we still use for some reason. Miles and stone. I don't know why we've got a weird mix like that. I guess just because they had like an immediate use, so we just kept them for that. It's like distances and a health related thing. I don't know. That's a weird thing with like English stuff. A lot of the reasoning is it is because we did, and then we couldn't be bothered to change it. Thankfully, we didn't have that with money. I still have no idea what the fuck a shilling is. Yeah, I've checked my foot. It's about a foot. Don't make me get the tape measure. I'm not going to show my feet on stream, but I can prove it in person. I zone out for 10 minutes and we're talking about feet again. Yes, blame Elliot. He mentioned feet, and then I just started rambling about the uses of the word foot. This isn't even the first conversation about it. No, the first one also involved ice cream, though. Because I think was it Ryan who brought up ice cream? I forget who brought up ice cream, but someone brought up ice cream. That was not on the camera. Dan was talking about cold feet. Cold surfer feet. Dear. This is just like what happens in my brain when I've had to be stuck in the house for a couple of weeks. Just the most random things come out. At least I've gotten those work weeks where I'm working Wednesdays and Fridays done with. Jason brought up ice cream. Right, okay. Yes, because he said he was getting ice cream. Yeah, I remember now. I can retrace. Let's just get that line where that angly bit of the jet attaches. This is mostly edge highlighted already, jeez. It's not even tidy though, but hey, don't need to be, since Mum and I are a tidy painter. So the conversation about feet with Jason's fault to be yeah. If you want to follow the causality. uh, the audacity. Yeah. I know you're a guard player, but sometimes you know, boots on the ground, a little bit too literal. Most people want those boots off. My phone is buzzing. Is it anything important? How do we feel about toes? Uh, I could pass. I don't honestly just like they're just weird. They're just bad fingers. Toenails also just kind of gross. Right, 90%. Just need to do the face. I say, ooh, it dried a little bit on me, so let me just re-wet my brush. Yeah, just the toes are just one of those things about the human body I just find weird. Just like, oh, that's what that looks like. Why does it have to look like that? But I had that moment once with hands. Like, I think it was a life drawing class. We were trying to do hands, and there's just that moment where you just look at them for too long, and you sort of think about what they're actually structured like. As like, oh, that's weird. They keep us balanced, but they're weird. I prefer when mine feel toasty. Yeah, I mean, I keep my socks on most of the time, so I don't have to look at them at least. They're a little too chunky. There we go. Like, I think evolutionary toes, like back when we were in the trees, our feet basically did just look like hands. So it kind of makes sense that they do look a little odd. So there's a bit of our brain that like recognizes what they used to be. Just under the eyes. Don't need a huge amount of highlighting on the face, seeing as half of it is buried behind a shoulder pad. I know it's not been the best view with this. I hate shoes and socks. I mean, fair. They can feel a little restricting, but I think half the reason I still wear socks as often as I do is with a hardwood floor. If I step barefoot on that, I feel all the bits. It's like, yeah, that is basically the yellow done, the silver done. Back on your mark, mate. So you're in focus. There we go. What next? What next? Metallics are done. A and the browns just seem like the obvious next step. Sip me drink again. Time we're going up to 10. Feet prisons. I mean, yeah. I used to hate wearing them the same as well, but I kind of got used to it. I don't know. Shoes, to be fair, shoes can get really uncomfortable. Like even correctly sized shoes. And to be fair, I've got weird feet. We're back on feet still. Like my my family has always described them as Norman feet. Like as in the Normans, not some guy called Norman. Where my feet are thin and long. So having a shoe that fits that means there's a lot of space on either side. Let them out. Free the toesies. So like, yeah, shoes have always been weird. Then again, most clothes of me have been weird because me describing my foot there describes most of my body. So like, hey, a pair of trousers. Hey, it fits my waist. Also, they're about 3 inches too short in the leg. So if I want trousers that fit, they've got to be too big. Same for t-shirts. If a t-shirt actually looks good on my shoulders, you're going to be seeing my belly. And I would rather not show that to the world. Uh, what next? Yes, the Browns. I'm getting pins and needles in the leg now that I'm thinking about my lower body. So just going to get, instead of the Doomball Brown, it's going to go back in with Mornfang, which is very chocolatey brown, going back to chocolate. And just highlight that up, going from that like reddish tone to a more sort of orangey, neutrally tone. Just da-da-da-da-da. I'm just gonna not really do like full lines. I'm just gonna tap it on. Want it to look a little rough and a bit patchy. Make it look like worn leather a bit more. It won't look great as worn leather, but Be the belly. All my clothes are too long. Yeah, you've got the opposite problem to me. We tried to go for a one size fits all approach to our clothes, and now they fit no one. You are not. Yeah. Same with blinking as well. The moment you start thinking about it, the moment you notice that you're doing it, thank goodness you don't do the same with, like, say, digesting food. That is just a passive thing your body just always does. Reminds me years ago, I got a little freaked out by a GIF. It was like an X-ray of someone swallowing, and like you saw like the back of the tongue, like where it connected to the throat, sort of like glump up to swallow it. And it was just that little thing that just reminded you that your body was just a pile of parts. It's just a bit like, oh. And then I got over that, thankfully. And then highlighting the brown. Gonna go with some Deathclaw brown. Could actually use this for a decent skin tone as well, sort of a more dark tan one. Just do some quick dirty highlights. A little less on my brush, please. If it's globbing like that. And just doesn't need to be neat. Just needs to look right. A little thingy there. Just where I can know there's a little texture. And in on the pouches. And these straps, just along the top of the straps, though. So glad they decided to put some soft textures on a Space Marine when they went to Primaris. It's like, here's a belt. They actually have a belt. Makes the armor feel a little bit more thought about rather than just, it's a plate. What's keeping that on them? I don't know, more plate. Yeah. Oh, that one's super quick. It's still a little satiny still, so it's shining a little, but a little less light over it. Yeah. You've actually seen most of the process of me painting a marine now. We just passed the 2 hour mark. Um, let's highlight the black because there's not a lot, but it'll get a bit more done on the gun and on his head. And then I think we'll call it there. So for black, I don't even shade it. I just go straight for just some edge highlighting with Mechanicus grey, which is like a 50 grey, like 50% white, 50% black. And I'm not even tidy with it. I don't think I'm tidy with any of this stuff anymore. I used to really try to be, and giving up on that and just saying just put paint on the models and figure out how to make the messiness look on purpose made me paint about 50% faster in general. Yeah, I can see a little bit of silver got that little doodad edge just around this little battery. I think that's what that is. And then on the head, mohawk just there. There are still the eyes to do, which is an interesting process, I find. Kind of like halfway between a lens and a gem, the way I do it. But that is not going to show up well on camera. Uh, wow, the black highlighted a lot quicker than I thought it would. Yeah. Whoops. All right, tell you what, challenge time. I'm going to put a checker on this bit, on the tilt shield. Let me find the Black Legion again. Black Templar, Black Legion. Might as well show a little bit of this process. So, let's load up my brush, and I'll plop some on the lid of the pot, just in case I do need to go back. But this shouldn't take long. And then find the halfway line on camera, and then get some on the hand from correcting yourself. There we go. I've had about 5 minutes to the stream. There we go. Now you'd never know. Let's find the what looks like the center, and we'll just draw down it using There we go. On knuckles like an elbow. And just try and make squares. That's not super even. Does it need to be now? Because I can bring this up. There we go. And that one there. And that one there. And now we have a checker. Some of the lines, squares are going overlapping a little bit, so let us just quickly fix that up. Go back in with the Ulf one. It is going to sort of act like an edge highlight as well. Find a square that we could make a little bigger. Just make it a little bigger. Or find a square that we could make a little smaller. And make it a little smaller. Yeah. And then just back in again to just make those lines a lot neater and straighter. There we go, and that's a checker. It's not a good checker, but it's a checker. To be fair, what I need to do, and this is a very simple fix, because that just looks like a line at the top there. So I just bring this up and over, and now it actually looks like a square, rather than just a line. There we go, that's much better. Right, wow. That was a lot more progress than I thought I would make tonight, in all fairness, but when you've been painting these fellas for years, you find your tips and tricks. Granted, 2 hours on one guy is probably a lot for some people, but for me, it's quick. Considering Dante took me 8, timed that when I did that, the stream plus the videos I watched to complete him over a couple of nights. Is that in focus? Yeah, that's actually pretty good in focus. And the base is also mostly dry. That is mostly just going to be a wash and a dry brush once that's done. So you're not really missing much action there. So, outside of the chapter symbol and the eye and the glow for the plasma and the base, it sounds like a lot, but those are all like 5-minute jobs. This guy is basically done. So, add in the rest of the squad, and that is going to be half of the jump intercessor squad for this list. I'm heading to bed. Night. No, that was well timed actually. We're just finishing up. So yeah, that is going to be 5 jump intercessors off the list. The squad is going to be 10 guys. Eventually. But for now, that's 5 guys. That is at least a fieldable unit on its own without the other 5. Let's actually put him there. Next month, yeah, might be the Land Raider just to get that started and have that be something plucked away in the background while we do some characters and other things. It could be the Eradicators because by the looks of it, they're going to arrive tomorrow, and I can finish off. I could turn a squad of 3 into a squad of 6 then. I'll decide. I'll decide, and the it won't be an issue until next month. So, 2010 took a Marine from a base coat and a wash gunfight. Night gunfight. Took a Marine from a base and a wash to almost done. That's honestly pretty good in my books. That's pretty on par with how the rest of these guys went. So that is also going to be good night for me. Thank you everyone for coming down and watching and spending a couple hours with me whilst I try and exercise some self-discipline. Yeah, I'll try not to witter on like last time. List still pending. Bit more confident in the current version. Also, just need a day where I've had enough sleep and enough time to play a 2K point game to be 100% sure. But I think I've solved most of the issues. But yeah, and we managed to dodge any of the balanced data slate, making the list change a huge amount. The upside of playing very specific units that not a lot of people play, they don't tend to get nerfed. Yeah, that is going to be everything for tonight. Thank you all for coming down, and be prepared to stare at a bunny for a minute or two while I wait for the stream to catch up. Ta-ra! No more feet.